Hi everyone, welcome back. Looking at Pythagoras, and people are mostly okay with just doing the simple triangles, but then we put two together and it makes a lot of people's brains up. I'm going to look at the question at the moment, this one I've designed here. We can get all sorts of different designs, so this is just one example which just gives you an idea how to do all the other types. And if I get a chance I'll make some more. Have a look at this situation here. We know that this is 4 and that's 6 and that meets in a right angle. That means we can figure out that length there. Now it didn't have a letter there, but it wouldn't hurt if it did have a letter there. And you can put a letter there, different letter to that one if you want to calculate that first, because you actually have to calculate that first. There's not enough information on that triangle to be able to figure out that. Once we know with this right angle triangle, we know what that is, then we can figure out what that is there. So I'm just going to put in the letter X there, just to have a letter there. So if I look at this triangle here, I can draw it separate. There's been a lot of people over the years who I've seen have to draw it separate. So I'm just going to say there's a 4, there's a 6 and there's an X. So if I said there's a question in the test, most of you get it right. I'm going to go properly through what would happen with the formula. And for me, I teach it again with H for hypotenuse. A lot of people teach it as C for hypotenuse. So if I look at the three sides here, that side there is the hypotenuse. It's the longest. How can we tell it's the longest? Well, you can see it's the longest. It's also opposite that right angle there. So the longest is the hypotenuse. So I'm going to put the X there, and then I can pick the 4 or the 6. It doesn't matter which one. I'm going to pick the 4 first, I'm going to pick the 6, and if I did all the working out, I go that's 16 and that's 36, and then I end up with this 52, and I get an answer of the square root of 52. And I have written over here that it is 7.2111, which is interesting, writing a fair few numbers. I want to show you something about that in a minute. So we need to use this answer, or this answer, to be able to work out what y is. So if I wanted to now on the diagram, I could write that as the square root of 52, or I could write it as 7.2111. Now if I look at my calculator, there's a lot more numbers, but that's a very accurate amount of decimals. Having 4 decimals is going to give us a good accuracy on the question. So again, like I talk about, a lot of people, they need to draw it separate. So if I went over here and drew this one and made it fairly similar, so there's the 5 and there's the y, and if I said that's 7.2111, and we're back to Pythagoras Theorem. Here's where a lot of people go wrong. They don't write the formula down. Now a lot of people can do it and have no problems about the formula. If you're one of them, that's okay. This time the y is not on the hypotenuse. The y is on the other sides. So the hypotenuse is 7.2111. If I square that. Now, I talk about square creatures that have it, y. I put the y next, you don't have to, but I'm going to write that. And then I've got the 5 squared. Now, interesting with this 7.2111, I actually have the numbers here. When you square that, that becomes 51.99996, which is pretty crazy, but let's have a look at what's going on. So, to start with, this side here is actually the square root of 52. And when we square it, we're back to nearly 52. If I had more decimals, I would actually get 52. So if you don't want to use the decimals here, so you can do that and go through the calculations and figure out the answer. If you don't want to do that, over here, instead of writing 7.211 there, I'm actually allowed to write that that's the square root of 52. Now a lot of people, when they write the square root of 52 and they say square it, will put a bracket around it to try to make it more obvious. I want to talk about this for a moment. Square root of 52 times the square root of 52 is 52. So sidetrack for a second. If I had the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, it's 3. If I had the square root of 5 by the square root of 5, it is 5. So any square root times itself, so they're called square and square root because they're the opposites of each other. They have the opposite effect on each other. So when I get the square root of 52 and I square it, I just get 52. Now I'm left with that y squared. So if you wanted to do all the decimals, you can. Now, what are we doing when we've got a situation like this? We want the y squared by itself. So the 25, oh that's funny, I've got a 52 and a 25. The 25 is in the way. So if I get rid of the 25 from this side, I get rid of the 25 from that side, and then I'm left with 27 equals, and this is what I call gone. It's gone. It's actually 0 rather than gone, but I call it gone. And that's y squared. How do I get the answer to the question? Okay, now y is the square root of 27. And then I need to calculate what the square root of 27 is, or do I? By the way, if I left it as a square root of 27 and we're talking about metres, that's what we call the exact answer. The moment I put it into my calculator, it's no longer an exact answer because the decimals go on and on and on and they have no pattern to them. So when I put that in my calculator, I get an approximate answer. But in real life, most of the time we want the approximate answer. So the answer to that is 5.196 and it's got more decimals. If I said I wanted accuracy, what accuracy do I want? I can't say it's 5, I need more accuracy than that. If I wrote it as 1 decimal place, so the peekaboo method I keep talking about, is it 5.1 or is it 5.2? It's a big number, so it becomes 5.2 metres, and I used to have to write 1 decimal place, but often the question will say 1. But these days, more and more, people are not saying, especially in Australia, that they want 1 decimal place. So once you make that decision yourself, you might decide to put 2 decimal places. But please, don't just put 5. That's when you're asking for marks to be taken off. So if it doesn't stipulate, sometimes I give people a rule of thumb if they don't want to think, make it 2 decimal places. So if I had that as 2 decimal places, I'd have 5.19, big number, so that becomes 5.20, which is interesting because now it's 2 decimal places. It looks like it's the same answer there. That extra 0 just tells you that it's very close to 5.2, and you can see it's very close to 5.2. Well, I hope it helps. If you want to support me, please press like. It is really helpful. And the other thing, if you subscribe, I have this big goal. I want to get to 1,000 subscribers, and a lot of people have been helping me lately. Thank you.